feel like they're sharing. But today we move from the vision an ideal man should have to how to carry out that vision or implement that vision. And in the time we have available, the next 40 minutes, I would say quite something about using the home as a vehicle of meeting that need, and good governance as the second thing that helps you to implement the vision. A whole emphasis about nurture versus nature, that the parenting, the fathering objective will be met from both angles. I will be talking about today's teenager and what they think of their parenting. I might mention something about the impact of divorce if I get time, and the whole issue about stress. And if I get time, I'll talk about the marriage situation in Kenya and how to avoid the negative impact. But I don't think I'll be able to go that far in my thinking. So we're asking ourselves, implementing the vision of the ideal man, where does one start? So we'll be looking at a practical house of reaching out to these men who are trying to achieve the vision of the ideal man. And it doesn't matter if you're old man or young man, old father or young father, these are challenges to us all. It will also look at the cost that this man who is trying to implement the vision will have to pay. And as he seeks to have a better generation of the future than the current one. What are the challenges you have to face ahead? What challenge would you expect? And the whole issue about discipling men is certainly different from discipling women. So we are actually in all this discussion trying to raise, we can't cover fully everything, but trying to raise the whole issue about what you can expect, because that will be important. Let me say the hope and prayer of the ideal man is that he will not be the one this teenager's prayer actually is concerned about. This is an assignment done by a young man or a school boy and given to a woman teacher. So in the evening, she was so impressed by this letter that she carried it home to read it to the husband. And the husband was willing to listen to the prayer. And it says, "Oh God," this is the boy praying, "tonight, ask you something very special. Make me into television. I want to take its place. Live like the TV in my house." Maybe today it will be WhatsApp or social media. He goes on in his prayer. "Have my own special place and have my family around me. To be taken seriously when I talk. I want to be the center of attention. And be heard without interruption or questions." That's what the boy thought the TV in his house was. And so he was admiring the TV and saying, "I wish I was like the TV." The prayer goes on. "I want to receive the same special care that the TV receives when it is not working. Have the company of my dad when he arrives home from work, even when he is tired. And I want my mom to want me when she is sad and upset, instead of ignoring me. And I want my brothers to fight to be with me. I want to feel that family just leaves everything aside, every now and then, just to spend some time with me. And last but not least, make it that I can make them all happy and entertain them. Lord, I don't ask you for much. I just want to live like every TV. I want to receive the same special care that the TV receives. At that moment, the husband of this teacher said, "My God, poor kid, what horrible parents." She looked up at him and said, "That essay is our son's." Hope you can get the seriousness of the matter. Because he thought those parents are hopeless, but it was their own son who had written it. Would you as write that? Please understand, men who want to implement their vision are the people we are calling good men. And they will be not be good. And this message comes from Paul to Timothy and also to Titus, if they have governed their homes well. Because good men only come from well-governed homes. Why is it important to have every home in the country, not just well provided for, like most husbands would do? They are providing everything, but they are not involved in the governance of the home. The wife is the governor of the home. He sounds like a visitor to his own home. But what do you mean by home? Because a home is the biggest vehicle of delivering whatever you want. Remember, in the ideal man, the vision is to produce the kind of man who will make Kenya different, who will make the country different, who will make his home different, who will make the church different, who will make the clan different. You are hoping your children will be impactful and change the future generation. That thing will happen if you have a good home. And it's a responsibility to any father who is the head of the home to achieve it. So ask yourself, these 4 objectives of a home, do you actually meet them? The first one is your home the human development center? 3 things if it's a human development center, we mentioned some of them before, is that if it's a human development center, you see yourself like a headmaster who is having to deliver, after 8 years of work, products to society that can be responsible citizens of society. Products for the church that can be useful members of the church. Products for families that can be wonderful family members of the future, well after you yourself have died. And your responsibility to therefore have a curriculum. Do you actually have a curriculum? Like we said in the last meeting, the curriculum will involve, like Luke chapter 2 verse 52, Jesus had a curriculum. So the summary of Jesus' development was that he grew in wisdom. So do you have a curriculum for intellectual development, where you are playing your part even as you pay the teacher to also play his part? Do you have a curriculum that is helping the child to grow not just in wisdom, which is in intellectual development, but also in physical development? What is your curriculum for ensuring your child grows physically healthy? What is it? What program have you actually developed? You are saying my children will, by the time they leave home, they will be healthy because I have ensured the program. You know, of course, when they are baby, you are doing all the vaccinations. But what is it that you do that ensures that they are physically healthy? Remember, I talking about that is the responsibility of home. So they are growing intellectually, they are growing physical development, they are also growing spiritually. What is your curriculum? I know Sunday school will play its part. What about you? What opinion are they having of who God is in their life and why God is that important in their life? What a place of prayer. And what are you doing to achieve it anyway? That is spiritual development. What about social development? What are you doing that ensures your child knows, learning how to fend off manipulators, chaotic leaders, terrible people in the social media. What are you doing to teach him to have skills, human relational skills, so that he can fend off for himself at the place of work with competitive people, with evil people? What are you doing? Does he know how to play with others without necessarily being influenced by them? Does he know how to handle peer pressure? What is his view of himself vis-a-vis other people? Is he suffering from superiority complex or suffering from inferiority complex? What is your curriculum to ensure you are delivering to society and to his marriage and to his church somebody who has been developed in your home? Because your home is the human development center. If you have a bad future generation, we have failed homes. And men, as headmasters of their homes, although there will be other teachers within the home, are responsible to ensure the teachers are doing their work, because it's their work to coordinate. That's the first responsibility of the home. Second one, the home is supposed to be the child's personal retreat or recharge center. Out there is fighting, there is competition, there is teenage rivalry, there is even sibling rivalry, all kinds of things. But he knows his father is a retreat center. He can come and pour all his filth and all the sufferings, and he knows the father will take it, because that's a retreat center. He knows after he has gotten very low marks and everyone is laughing at him, he can come honestly and say, my father, I failed, terribly failed. I don't know why I failed, or I know why I failed, but he knows the father will not throw him out of the house. I hope this doesn't happen to you. But the daughter knows that if she has been raped, she can run home with a father who will not tell her, you must have had wearing a short dress. The problem is you. But will understand. Can she dare share all her failures, including her own sins, with you? Because you are, before she can go to pastors outside, she knows a place where she will be treated with confidentiality and understanding as a retreat center. Is that really you? Can failed young people come home knowing they'll be accepted despite their failure, and then help to recover and to retreat? Because what do you do in a retreat? But you see, this retreat center is also a recharge center. The batteries are low, the batteries of life are very low. But he knows the father has the ability, despite all his own problems, he will put his own problems aside and just concentrate on this son, on this daughter. Is that so? When the young girl has just been dropped like a hot potato by the boyfriend, can she come home and know the father will empathize, will understand, and will help her to know how to deal with the men? Is really your house a personal retreat or recharge center for the children and also for your spouse? Or do they have to look elsewhere? Do they regard their father not just as a tyrant, but as a friend, an understanding friend? That does not mean he does not discipline them, but they can feel love in the discipline. So they don't even mind coming. They don't even mind saying, okay, I have done wrong. We agreed I'll get three canes. Go ahead, Papa, give me the 3 canes. They know he is not doing out of hatred or anger or losing temper. That's what you would call a personal retreat or recharge center. But thirdly, a home that can deliver the vision we have been talking about is an unconditional love center. The unconditional love center. You can see, if it is not an unconditional love center, it will not become the personal retreat center. Unconditional love center means, if you ask your father, why do you love me? Just because you are my son. In other words, he does not start thinking, the reason my father loves me is because I was number one in class. He knows even if he was number last in class, there's one place he is assured of love. It is his own home. It's not, of course, you are happy when he gets number one. You are happy when he becomes a Christian and is worshiping the Lord. But he knows even if he is backslidden, the Father will still love him, be patient with him, seek to recover him from his failure. The Unconditional Love Center. And then number 4, we are saying if you really are running a good home that will deliver the kind of citizens you are after, fourthly, it must be the Worldview Foundation Center. You are the one to give your children a worldview. What is worldview? The glasses through which you interpret life. Values that make him know what is right and wrong according to him. Obviously, we are hoping that he will be given biblical worldview. It's a foundation. But all that only happens in the home. Last Sunday I was speaking at Kenyatta University and they were calling it African Sunday. There were people from other nations who were given a chance to talk, and then they were singing in various tribes. And I was telling them that you need to understand that you do not, and I was making them laugh when I told them, you can be a Luo who cannot speak Luo at all. You know the language. You don't even have a Luo name. You are called Brian, which is popular these days. But if your father died, you still want to get his body through your home and to stay overnight. Which the other people being queer. How can you get a dead body to your house? Why can't you go mortuary to the hole? But you don't. You wonder why. Your father is going to feel unwelcome. How come you are not in home? Now, what has happened? The values you are given by your father do not have to be given the Luo. A lot of people are not teaching their children their local languages, thinking that they'll be now Kenyan. No, you do not get your values in any language. You just watch your parents. Habits are caught, not taught. It's the way you grew up, the way you see your grandmother treated, the way you see your grandmother treated. Whether they are treated in English or Luo, it doesn't matter. It's giving you your values, especially before you are age 10. So I'm saying, what kind of values are you giving your children? Are they going to think that all people from all other tribes are useless? You are the only tribe? And I repeat, like I told Kenyatta University last Sunday, it will not be the language. You can't sort it out by language. You sort it out by the way, the example you set before your children. So that is the home, as the home is the one vehicle. I'm not saying the how. The one vehicle that will help you to deliver the kind of children, the kind of spouse that this country and the church needs. But number 2 is the issue of family governance and how you govern. You know, you need to keep your son from becoming the lost man later in life. You know, the people that are in the prison are there because they could not fit in society. It is the governance at home that actually produces the people in prison. By the way, that's what the scripture says. Spare the rod and you locate your son. You are sending your son to the maximum prison. By the time he is 20, 21, he will be in prison. If he is not going to be there at the age of 9 in what we call approved homes, which are prisons for small children. I want to quote a study I read in the internet by somebody called Adrian Rain, psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania, who conducted some fascinating experiments. What he was trying to do is to figure out the brain signatures of criminal behavior and what kinds of interventions might prevent people from ever becoming offenders and ending up in prison. And we are asking the question, to what extent are factors like parenting important in ensuring people don't end up in prison? By the way, more than 100 studies have shown that only about half of crime is on some level under genetic control. In other words, you don't end up in Kamiti because our fathers were genetically evil. No. Some have come from Christian parents who have wonderful, wonderful parentage. Their great parents, everybody in their lineage are wonderful, but they still end up in prison. It means that the environmental factors, other than genetics, account for many people. So, what are the environmental factors? Not who are your parents, but how did they parent you? Another one. Did you suffer from abuse? Psychological abuse? Physical abuse? Did you suffer from abuse as you are growing up? Or were you brought up in poverty and lack and having to fight your own way? Like I grew up in the 1950s during emergency. Food was scarce. You learned how to not eat slowly because how much goes to your stomach depends on your speed. And it can become part of you, so that you're always eating in a hurry, even if you are a billionaire. It is, and even finding yourself wanting to steal, you're already very rich, but you're trying to steal. Of course, you end up in prison because of the kind of background and how it have impacted you. It can also be experiencing discrimination as you are growing up. Either tribal discrimination, race discrimination, gender discrimination. You are a girl and you are discriminated against. Your father loved boys, not girls, or loved girls, not boys. You feel discriminated. That could land you in prison in later life. Even the whole issue of you left school and you suffered unemployment. You feel the world doesn't need you, doesn't want your skills, and as a reaction, you could end up doing things that will land you in prison. Let's spend a bit of time talking about this whole issue about who are we? What makes us who you are? Is it nurture or nature? Nurture means environmental, how you are brought up. Nature means your genetics. You know, the nurture part of the picture is just as important as nature. If you want to stop crime, so Rene said, if you want to stop crime, if you want to be able to understand the causes of crime, if you want to develop treatment programs to attack the causes of crime, we need to understand all the pieces, not just nurture, not just nature, everything together. You know, clearly the environment you bring up your children influences who they become. In fact, many psychologists believe that each human, on average, only 20% of who they become is determined by genetic blueprint. In other words, if you are born a Kikuyu and you grow up in Luoland, you are 80% a Luo. It doesn't matter that both your parents were Kikuyu. You will be Ake a Luo. And you may be more Luo than a Luo who is born by two Luo parents but lived outside of Luoland. That just tells you how parenting, which is part of the environmental factor, how critical it is on the future generations. Because the other 80% is determined by environmental and external factors that have happened not before birth, but after birth. Here we are talking about, and you can go to Google the word telomerase, nutrition, managing lifestyle factors, because they seem to be the best research we have as you look at them. Thus, on average, only 20% of who you are is determined by our genetics. The other 80% is within the parents' control, the father's control. Isn't it the father who determines to place, to bring up the child in a slum or in a criminal prone area? So the playmates of the son are criminals. Or the area they happen to be in, when they went there, was okay. But in order to save money so that he can grow his wealth, he decides to hold his family there, especially on the first part of their life, because he believes that way later in life, they are going to be better. Little understanding that most of who we are is made before we start counting our age in double digits. That means before we are teenagers is what matters, not what will happen after we are teenagers. So if you go and ensure your children are brought up in a place that's wrong, and I've known that. I've seen several of my friends who have brought up their children in Europe or America, and the kind of challenges they go through when the children are teenagers and later in adulthood. And I say, wow. So it means you have to determine the location of where you are bringing up your children. And unfortunately, that's when you don't even have a lot of money. And yet you may have to remove many other things in order to locate your children where they should be. I've been sending a clip of some things I spoke at Sitam Kikuyu Church, and I was telling them the church you attend should be determined by the Sunday school of your children for the first 10 years of their life. After that, go to any church you enjoy. The fact that the pastor is a wonderful preacher is not useful, because you are adult, you can actually run your own, you can do your own things. So the church you attend before your children are teenagers especially must be determined by the quality of Sunday school. Do they have the kind of Sunday school where people ask, hey, anybody come and help? Or do they vet the Sunday school teachers? Is it a Sunday school with a syllabus? Or is it just a place where you entertain children to keep them away from making noise in church? Where you bring up your children will determine who they are in life. We're answering the question of how do you deliver the ideal parenting, the ideal product that we talked about earlier. We can go on, but we don't have all the time, and I'm measuring my time. I've already taken 27 minutes. I don't have a long to go. So I think it will be important. It's the same thing with when I talked about it earlier. What we eat is determined by the parents initially. Even what a child does, especially before they are teenagers, the tool they play with. You make your boy play with a doll of like a girl. Within no time they don't know the difference between a boy and a girl. Later you complain that they are becoming gender insensitive. They are becoming homosexuals. But there's the kind of tools and that you actually place on your toddler. Who you surround yourself with as the children are growing up determines who they become later in life. You know, let's be clear, society's problems or success is mainly decided by your home, by every home in the country. Some estimate that we are 20% nature, since you have said that 20% we are 20% nature, so the rest of it, the majority of us, is through nature or the environment. Who we are then, who we are is more the environment we are brought up and less who our parents are. Society's problems or success is mainly decided right how you are growing up. Yes, today's professionals, unfortunately, do not bring up their children. They can delegate to less qualified environment. The husband is a PhD holder, the wife is a PhD holder, but the house girl is a standard 3 dropout. And in the life of that child, the majority of the time is with the child. Remember, since you have agreed genetics are only playing 20%. Later you say, how can you behave like that? You are the children of PhD parents. No, they are not your children. You are the foster, you paid all the school fees, that's okay. But who they became depends on who they spend their time with most of the time. There's a study, and I don't think I have enough time to deal with it. There's the status of the boy child in Kenya, done by a government Kisumu office. A report of emerging perception on the inclusion of the boy child in the gender equality agenda. I can't go through the whole thing. But according to the result of the assessment they did, the boy child is perceived to be lagging behind the girl child in the gender equality agenda. The environment seems to favor the girl rather than the boy. Majority of the respondents express fear that if there are no interventions, the boy child will be left behind, especially in education, since there has been overemphasis on the education of the girl child. The assessment identified the key drivers of exclusion of the boy child to include how he is treated at home and families, the socialization process, thirdly, cultural and traditional factors, and finally, the boy suffering from peer pressure. It starts with the mother. The mother seems more concerned about the girl child than the boy child. That's the environment we are talking about. The father is often absent from home anyway. So even if you would be concerned about his son, he is not there. Or he may be there, but he is an alcoholic. In a family where the father is often absent from home or is alcoholic, boys lack role models, or because the mother cannot be a role model of how to be a man. The Sunday school teacher with another woman cannot help. The teacher with another woman cannot help. So the boy is growing in an environment that doesn't give him an example what it is to be a boy. And then he is lacking parental guidance. And this will affect their developmental and even the way they behave later in life. The boy child in some communities is expected to take on the responsibility of head of the family once the father leaves. And you see, many homes, in fact, some estimates as many as 60% of Kenyan homes are led by women. The father either died or left, divorced, or is absent due to work, or is absent due to drugs. Now, that's what you are talking about, the environment in which the boy is growing. So you find that you end up thinking girls are better, but the environment of home is what is causing all this. Most people prefer to adopt girls rather than boys, just as an example. According to children's officers in counties where there is an option of adoption, most people prefer to adopt girls rather than boys. So the girls will be rescued out of homes when the parents have failed. But nobody want to rescue boys. This denies the boy child the opportunity of being brought up in homes under care of family. And many often end up in charitable children's institutions rather than homes. Then the whole other issue of drug and substance abuse. Once parenting fails, the boys start very early. Then you have another problem. Early marriages. This boy who is loose ends up sleeping with the girls very early. Then he is forced to marry them. Yeah, boys are forced to get married when they impregnate a girl, regardless of their age. Again, if parents die, the other boy is expected to start a family and take care of siblings, even if it is the mother's family. In Kericho County, some reporters said that once a boy was circumcised, they were considered adult and were expected to behave like adults, probably settle down to a family life. You see that? You circumcise a 13-year-old boy. Then the circumcision process, socialization process, you are a man. How could a 13-year-old boy be a man? Or 14-year-old boy be a man? You are destroying your son by cheating him as a man at the age of 13, 14, before his brain and he has a capacity to be a man. Instead of a slow process of becoming an adult, just a surgical operation makes him think he is mentally a man. As if surgery can go to the brain. Now, all these are things that are going to destroy your son. Please help your boy to know how to handle peer pressure. And this peer pressure may come from the social media. So there's a whole subject about you understanding social media as a father and how to guide your son to handle social media. You may need to read about it. Don't give your son a smartphone very early without instructions on how to use it. Boy is seen as a threat to inheritance of property. So if he is left alive by the mother, the father has gone away, then you have a son, the uncles start already fighting him. And of course, you are talking about circumcision of boys may trigger his early rebellion. You know, the traditional role of religion was to shape society to uphold good morals and values. If the boy doesn't grow in church and with family altar, there will be a problem of getting biblical values. What are the solutions? And I've actually now run out of time. So I'll just highlight them. Number one, you need to change your priority as a man. It must be God, number one, spouse, you are number two, your children, number three, other things, number four. Just look at 1 Corinthians 7:32. I like you to be free from concern. In other words, I want you to be single. If you choose to be married, it will be different. Paul goes on. An unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs, how he can please the Lord. But a married man, like every father should be, is concerned about the affairs of this world, his children, his spouse, how he can please his wife. And his interests are divided between serving God and serving the family. And Paul is not condemning you, he's just noting. An unmarried woman or virgin is concerned about the Lord's affairs. Her aim is to be devoted to the Lord in both body and spirit. But a married woman, just like the married man, is concerned about the affairs of this world, how he can please her husband. Paul's position therefore is that marriage has certain benefit, but also certain limitations. So if Paul himself says that you should reduce your involvement in church work in order to allocate time to your wife and children, would the employer be expected to do any less? If God himself is saying, yeah, take a bit of your time, reduce your involvement in the church now that you are married, what about your church? You must relook at your life. Slow down. You are looking for money. Slow down promotion. Tell your employees, okay, even if I don't get promotion now, I don't want that job that will make me take me away from my children until they become at least teenagers. You know, all fatherhood derives its name from the fatherhood of God. You know, the Lord's Prayer, we always say, Our Father who art in heaven. By saying the Lord's Prayer, you are saying, God, teach me to be a parent like you. I know the only way my children will be able to know God is they understand me as a parent. Because you see, when you say the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, means the child knows a father on earth and is now learning about the father that is not visible because of the father here. That means you are God's representative in your own form. So when you are a bad father, you are making God be a bad God in the sight of the child. So what you are here saying is marriage must affect other aspects of your life. God expects it. We must create time to be with the children, even if our work is godly. Even pastors are being told, yes, you are a pastor, but you must take away your time from God's so-called God's work, church work, in order to be with your family. And I think that will be very important. How do you create time for parenting? Number one, and we talked about during the vision, have a family vision, not just a personal vision. In other words, the wife have a vision, you have a vision, but now you must get a family vision that will include the children. How do you see your children when they are grandparents themselves? What do you need to do now in order for those children to be like that? Then realign all your activities to produce that kind of a child who is in your vision. Align your mentoring with vision. That will now include the choice of schools. Because it will be based on, can that primary school, can that high school, can that university help you in your endeavor to produce the kind of man or woman whom you see when they are 50? You know, if you take your child, for example, to a Catholic school, you can't let a complaint that your child is a Catholic. That's why you took him there anyway in the first place. All a Catholic man needs to do, but just as a good at to be just a good teacher. If she is really good, your son, you may be a Pentecostal pastor, but your son will admire Catholicism. Because my best teacher is a nun. I would like to be a nun also. Who told you that your son has to get an A in order to fulfill God's purpose? Does he have to get an A to be the kind of son you wanted? Of course you want him to get an A if possible. But there are other more important things. Hence, no hopeless child, you need to understand that, irrespective of the grade you get. You know, A, maybe if you want to become a university lecturer. But C, if you want to be a businessman. But whether A or C, he is still a success. So be clear what kind of child you want to produce. Don't get zigzag in the matter if you really want to produce him. What we are saying is that appreciate every child. But I say every child, maybe you are not, if you are not married, it will mean the boys that you are mentoring. It's wrong to give the academically gifted child a better gift than the one gifted in interpersonal skills. Because you make the every child thinks to be, in order to please the father, it's only academic that matters. If you know more matters, give gifts for other things, not just academics. And I think that's something we have talked about. Help a child serve God's purpose in our own generation. It's another message we hear of David in Acts 13 verse 36. For when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep. He was buried with his fathers, and his body decayed. The objective of parenting is preparing the child to fulfill not your desire as a parent, but God's parent. That's why David did not serve Jesse's purpose. He served God's purpose. Help your child, even if your child will do things you'd never have wanted to do yourself. You are not after producing yourself in a child. You are after helping the child to fulfill God's purpose in his own life. You live for the nation and help your child to live for his. So you have, when we keep quoting Proverbs 22:6, train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. People think to train the child the way you want him to go. That's what the verse is saying. It's the way God wants him to go. So, what are we saying then? Help him to grow more dependent on God than on you. Don't let the child think that he's trying to please you. Encourage him to please God, because one of these days you will be out of the picture, but God will remain with him. Teach him or her to have communion with God. Mentor them to live like Christ, not like you. You have many limitations. It is not what you leave your child that matters, but what you leave in your child. So, please use friendship in this process. Befriend your child and teach your child that what God says is more important than anything else in life. Build a strong foundation right from the beginning. And my time is up. But I hope in the few things you have said, you have understood 4 things. Number 1, that the home is critical in delivering. So you need to invest in the kind of home. And when you say home, it's not just the house, it's the atmosphere. Number 2, that how you govern your home matters. That's why the parents who don't govern well were told not to become elders in the church. Governance matters. Number 3, that your definition of success, who you are trying to produce at the end, will influence what you do in the process. Number 3, that it is important that you are not trying to produce a child like you. You are trying to produce a child the way God wants him to be. Thank you very much. The meeting can go back to the MC.